Are they? Religionism and atheism. I suppose atheism is pretty much self-explanatory, and I have a list here of the main features of atheism. And there is no God, there is no survival after death. Um, when you perceive coincidence and miracles and things that appear to defy the laws of physics, this is really just your perception, a trick of perception, if you like, here, a sort of self hypnosis or an auto suggestion situation. Um, so the universe does not care. Its morality comes from human philosophy, from human observation, from human sentiment and sensibility. But the universe itself is just energy, has no right or wrong. Um, yes, existence arose by chance alone. Out of all the planets in the solar system, this one just happened to be the right one for life to begin. So there is no creativity behind the existence of life, no causal, no first cause, as theologians talk about, because there is no God. Um, so basically, life on Earth has evolved, hasn't been created. So this statement really follows directly from the above statement. Um, and then, yeah, this is an interesting one. Limited mind over matter, and you need matter to attain this. By which I mean that we are governed by our material bodies, but science and technology, research and development has so organized certain parts of the universe such that they ostensibly create miraculous causes or miraculous effects, or medical effects, for example. And I mean, we do have mind over matter, so you could argue that a human mind does exercise control over matter to much greater extent than animals do, but that they need matter. They need various inventions and innovations to do this. Um, and everything else is basically the placebo effect. This is not to denigrate the placebo effect in any shape or form, because that does seem to bear out that there is a connection between mind and body. And they've done various experiments to show that people can improve and do incredible things with their with their bodies as a result of training and dedication and innate ability. And other people have also been able to conquer cancer through various mind experiments, apparently. But when you take all the, I mean, this is very rare, and when you take all other considerations into account, the sort of jury's out on that one, really. Although there's a lot of interesting experiments done on the placebo effect suggest basically that to a limited degree, um, mind can influence how the body works, and certain outcomes are not inevitable as a result of the intervention of mind, which possibly is a metaphor for the intervention of spirit on matter, according to a religious or spiritual view. And then finally, biological causality is greatly or almost entirely determined genetically. And whereas it used to be that environment was more important than genetics, I think now the jury has come back on that one and decided that actually pretty much everything is a group of chromosomes working together to produce character traits and everything really. from Alzheimer's to criminal behaviour. So, I mean, that's kind of biological determinism right there. So we have Darwinian evolutionary determinism on the one hand, which is sort of movement of genomes over time. And then we have like individuals that whose behaviors and physical characteristics are determined genetically. And that, this becomes very sophisticated indeed. This genetic determinism as something which can actually be empirically measured. So this is basically atheism in a nutshell, really. You don't need a god for all this to happen. And that's the point. But I always think that survival. Some people say that survival after death is independent of there being a god, which is an interesting idea as well. That that soul exists, or the astral exists, or the spiritual dimensions exist, and there doesn't have to be a god, which is an interesting way of looking at it. There's nothing organized in the universe. So there are just levels of existence which overlay physical existence, and after death, you enter into these more spiritual planes, and that's also part of the way the universe is organized. But I mean, atheists wouldn't go that far by any stretch of the imagination. Now, so this is what atheists that reject the existence of God and survival after death, and all the other things. They reject synchronicity and serendipity and all these things, potents and omens and things like that. Reject that. But obviously they accept, and possibly in a philosophical sense, the universe doesn't care about you, and it's just a series of millions and millions of algorithms, and it's completely impersonal. Which I mean, in Hinduism, the impersonal Brahmin idea accepts as well that there's no personal Brahmin. It's really just impersonal Brahmin, which you have to become aware of if you wish to achieve some kind of mental mind liberation. And in Hinduism, in Tantra, for example, in Hinduism, there's a great movement in the medieval days of atheism, humanism, and Tantra is just talking about energy and mind rather than God or gods and some kind of controlling force in the universe. It's human beings that can control the forces of the universe and do control them to a lesser or greater, to either successfully or unsuccessfully. But anyway, what do atheists promote, or what do they think in positive terms? I suppose you could say. Well, we basically we make our own destiny. All this magic and demons and angels and all this coming to help us. Or even help us see the meaning of life. We can do it ourselves. We don't need a god or gods or angels or demons to get us from A to B. We're quite capable of getting there ourselves, both collectively and individually. And then you come on to things like well, the fault is not in our stars but in ourselves. It's in ourselves and not in our stars. By which is meant a dig of astrology. The stars don't determine character. Genetics determines character and environment. But if we find fault within ourselves, if there are things that we can improve, again, we don't have to wait till the stars are in a correct alignment for improvements to happen. We can do it for ourselves. We can correct our own faults, and becoming aware of our faults is the first is the first stage to correcting them. So again, we don't need astrology and all that kind of bump. We can also, we should be the best that we can be, and this would be like the meaning of life would be simply to become the best that we could be. In humanist terms, we self-actualize. So we work hard and we have ambition, and coupled with a balanced view of the universe, and keep it professional, and don't get overweeningly ambitious, and we can get the Oscar for the best picture or whatever, and that would be a crowning achievement in one's life, and if you've just got one Oscar, that would be a really great achievement, and the best thing that can ever happen. People say, I sang in the Eurovision Song Contest for my country. Well, that's kind of being the best that you can be, representing your country at the Olympics, even if you don't win a medal. Then that's a huge honour and a big deal. And linked to this, I suppose, is the pursuit of happiness, which is not only our right but almost our duty, really. We promote happiness in ourselves and in others. We create a happy environment for our families, for example, or communities. Um, and this is a constitutional right that we have to pursue happiness. And based on more philosophical points, all we have is the here and now. We don't have Our future is uncertain, and our past is history. Future is a mystery, and we have a here and now. We can chill out and go into the here and now, and go and sort of develop our Buddha mind, our Tathagata, the actual create a Buddha consciousness of being in the here and now, rather than fretting about the future. And what will be kind of thing. But at the same time, we can also take control of our future, our destiny as well. And then another thing I thought of here under atheism really is all things in moderation. And again, pursuit of pleasure, but not at other people's expense. So there's an ethic that arises from the pursuit of pleasure, and don't overdo it. Don't harm yourself or others in the pursuit of pleasure. There are means and ends, kind of thing. And as far as pleasure is concerned, the end doesn't justify the means, kind of thing. So, and then finally, love your neighbor as yourself, which is what Jesus said, quoting from the Old Testament. Deuteronomy, I think. Anyway, I could be wrong on that. Oops. Anyway, never mind. You've got to love yourself, and then you can love others, which is, pretty much the objective of psychology, isn't it? Really, humanist psychology is to learn to love yourself and accept yourself for who you are, and then you'll accept other people for who they are. And so love your neighbor as yourself. So this kind of is almost a religious. It comes from a religious source, does it not? And it comes from the words of Jesus, in actual fact, in the New Testament. So this sort of brings us on to religionism, because I think a lot this list that I've got here actually is adopted to a very, very great extent by people who believe in God, who believe in survival after death. And it is possible actually to be a religious person and to accept all the scientific points that I've raised here under atheism as well. And so you can become you can be a Christian and a scientist, for example. There's no problem there. And you can have God as being first cause. But under religionism, I've just simply said that all good people believe in God, and there's an emphasis on all good people. So, in order to be acceptable, in order to be defined as a good person, you have to believe in God, and this is true of many, many cultures and countries around the world, including the USA. That's supposed to be so materialistic. But as people have argued, religion in the USA does have an extremely materialistic kind of aspect to it, which I've actually listed here. All things in moderation. And love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, if we can, you know. But basically, if you're a good person, God created the world. The world is good. Good people worship God. Bad people do not worship God. It's kind of how you define somebody as being sort of all right if they believe in God, and if they don't believe in God, there may be something wrong with them. You can sort of you sidle away from them because they could be kind of a bit weird, and but they're no more weird than you are, really. But then making this relevant to Gnosticism, in a way, the Gnostic experience. So, well, people have an experience of soul and of God, which almost kind of supersedes or trumps all of this. I mean, all of this is like atheism, religionism, and the debate goes on. But then you have an experience, which means that I don't know whether good people believe in God. I don't know if that's empirically true. I think a lot of bad people, believe in God, and people who do bad things believe in God. One thinks of Saddam Hussein suddenly converting to Islam towards the end of his reign of terror, in order to sort of win favour with Islamists around the world, I suppose. And but perhaps a leopard can change his spots. I don't know. Can it? Or that's a question mark. But anyway, in a way, Gnosticism, is a direct experience of the fact that all this that I've mentioned up till now is sort of transcended, really. And it's not a question of good or bad. It's not a question of is there life after death or isn't there. It's not a question of being a good person. It's a definite knowledge that there is survival after death, um, and God does exist because you can experience God directly, and you can also pretty much predict survival after death based on that experience. Not that you would reject any of these other things. All these other things about science, technology, and about living in society are true. All things in moderation, of course. Love others as you love yourself. I mean, no argument there. It's just that some people sort of lay great store by all good people worship God, for example, or believe in God, and bad people don't. Well, I mean that you're definitely going to transcend that with your Gnostic experience. And in a way, you're going to transcend the debate as to whether God exists or not. Because you have direct knowledge that God does exist. So that's the truth and the end of it, kind of thing. But you also transcend to a certain degree about your involvement in the world. I mean, the world has your minimum attention. Um, and you behave ethically within this world, because you're not of this world, and because God does exist, and because that soul exists and the inevitability of soul going back to heaven. That's the sign. That's my personal symbol for Gnosticism. Is souls captured, taken down into the lower worlds, and then goes back to heaven again, through because of the intervention of the spiritual, or the Christ and Christ's work on the cross. And people have said to me that they don't really like it being too Christian. Um, so to keep it PC, we'll just say that there is a soul that is captured in some way by the lower worlds and the forces of the lower worlds, and at the nadir of its existence or experience, there's an intervention from spirit, and then the soul is taken back up to heaven. And this doesn't happen just once, 2,000 years ago with Jesus. It's a thing which continually happens, which has always happened and always will happen so long as there are souls that are trapped in the lower worlds. And this will carry on. So it's, in a sense, it becomes a time issue that that the intervention of spirit is happening all the time to every soul and always has happened. And despite everything that's going on around us, souls are going back up to heaven. Souls are being captured and they come down the ladder and then they go back up the ladder, like Jacob, is it Jacob's vision of angels going down ladders and back up. One might say down the snake and up the ladder. The snake is the demiurge, and the ladder is what is the spirituality that takes us back up to heaven. And this is a continuous process, and you know this is going on because you've had a Gnostic experience, which basically tells you this is going on, and always has gone on and always will go on. And this gives one great hope. Because a lot of people say that atheism doesn't have any hope attached to it. That's actually not quite true, because if you link atheism to futurism, then there is a sort of hope in the future of humankind and the environment, the planetary environment, that things will get better inevitably. But this could be a bit of a naive hope, actually, as far as Gnostics are concerned, and the jury's out on that one for definite. But you could almost say, well, religion isn't just a matter of all everybody holding up the Bibles and reading off the same page and being conformist and judging other people for not believing in God. It's not, you transcend that for sure. But anyway, Gnosticism is about transcendence, but it's also about acceptance as well, because you have to accept uh, science and technology, innovation, etc. Maybe you accept that genetics is a biological determinant, and to a great degree. But soul transcends all these biological and physics-based determinants, and in a sense, but it doesn't transcend ethics. There's a tendency to think, well, if there is soul, and soul can't be harmed or harm, then it doesn't matter what you do, which I want to come back to in another video, perhaps. It's a fascinating theology, which could lead you into complete psychopathy if you watch it. But we do need to lead an ethical life if you want to experience soul. If you want to reach into the realms of Gnosticism, in preparation for an experience which will really, really finally confirm to you that there really is a God, and there really is soul, and soul becomes realigned with God or reconciled with God, as one might say. And this is an inevitable thing, and this is a source of great hope. And when life gets you down, when it's very difficult to be an ethical person, which it sometimes is in this world, and when you don't feel you're a good person, even though you do believe in God or worshiping God, you know your own self. You stand in the church and you think, I don't know why I'm here, because I'm not such a good person, really. If the congregation only knew what I really thought or did, they would be absolutely appalled, for example. This goes for priests and congregation. But I mean, again, there is a sort of feeling, really, of transcendence of all this. And all we might have is hope, faith, and charity. Charity means belief in God, but faith is that, faith is confirmed. You see, in Gnosticism, faith is confirmed by direct experience, which is going to give you hope. But you don't need even the Gnostic experience, because you can have hope just by contemplating this video, for example. And if one wanted to evangelize Gnosticism, one would say to people, well, there is always hope, and you should never let that go, because as I say, it's hard to be a good person in this world. It's hard to be a good person and to worship God. Sometimes it's not enough to be worshipping or believing, because this world will still corrupt you. And maybe your genetics will let you down in some form or another. But there is hope that there is transcendence. There is transcendence, and there is the soul will rise. They say what goes up must come down. That's true of gravity. But of soul, it can be said of what comes down must go back up.